Breath of the Wild is one of my all-time favorite games, but it wasn't perfect. It had flaws, and Breath of the Wild 2 could fix those flaws and build on the foundations of the original. What can the sequel learn from the original to become an even better game? Let's find out. Hello there. I'm Mr. Cobwobbles, this is Alfred, and welcome to a video about Breath of the Wild and its sequel, which we should hear more about this year, hopefully. In my opinion, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a masterpiece. I remember being in absolute awe the first time I played it and how hooked I was on it. I love this game so much that I played through it 4 more times, one of which was a 100% Master Mode playthrough I did on my Twitch channel, and oh my god, of course did I buy the DLC, and wow, was it epic. Especially Champion's Ballad, the truly open world, the sense of exploration, the various intriguing and breathtaking lush locales, the fun game mechanics, and charming characters swept me off my feet. However, when you play through this game 5 times, and especially after 100% completing it, you do start to see flaws. This game isn't flawless. No game truly is, for that matter. And that doesn't make it any less of a masterpiece. I loved playing it every playthrough that I've done. But we have a sequel coming. And if that sequel can fix some of the flaws in the original Breath of the Wild, it could become, in my humble opinion, one of the best games ever made. Let's start off with something quite a lot of Zelda fans felt they missed in Breath of the Wild. Dungeons weren't really a part of Breath of the Wild, and in my first few playthroughs, I didn't really mind that. Breath of the Wild was also my first Zelda game I played, so I had no idea what I was missing out on, but after I played Link to the Past and Link's Awakening, I knew Breath of the Wild could have benefited from dungeons. We had shrines and divine beasts to explore, which was perfectly fine, but there are no dungeons, and they all looked pretty much the same. I wouldn't mind if Breath of the Wild 2 continued the use of shrines with small puzzles and stuff, but if they did, they should first off make them look and play different according to which biome they're in. That alone would already spruce things up to the next level. And second, probably have a little bit less of them and make each one a little bit more expansive. But I would also like for them to add actual dungeons in Breath of the Wild 2. Like, let's say 5. Each one looking and feeling different than the other one, with a cool boss fight at the end of it, and with a reward that makes it worth your while. And we'll come back to boss fights later in the video. Now, the one place in Breath of the Wild that you could kind of see as a dungeon was Hyrule Castle. However, most players that go there to beat Ganon have built an arsenal and have gained abilities to just skip over most of it. They could have easily fixed this by going for the terminal approach that they used in the Divine Beast and have that clear the way to the Inner Sanctum to face Ganon. This would have given us a reason to actually go through the castle and make it feel like an actual dungeon. So I hope the sequel does this better, and that it implements actual dungeons that feel unique. Because they missed that opportunity a little with the Divine Beasts, as they could have made each one look completely unique in a way, and now they all look a bit the same, which is a missed opportunity. So, Breath of the Wild, give us some awesome dungeons and make it all feel fresh and unique. I'd love that. Fast travel in Breath of the Wild is overpowered. Last week, I did a series of charity streams on my Twitch channel where I needed to finish Breath of the Wild in a week, defeating the beasts and Ganon without fast travel. And let me tell you, it was a challenge. Normally, if you're in a fight and you're losing it, you could just teleport out, and that takes away from the experience a little bit. And I never saw this as a problem until I did my no fast travel playthrough. It made things so much more interesting and challenging. For the record, I do not want Breath of the Wild 2 to get rid of fast travel. No. It should be in there. It should just be nerfed in comparison to the original Breath of the Wild. You just shouldn't be able to fast travel out of a tricky situation. I've used the fast travel in Breath of the Wild to get out of tricky situations, but it's just so much nicer not being able to do that. It adds more spice to the gameplay, and especially the fights, because you already have to calculate your fights a little in Breath of the Wild, especially on Master Mode. But having no fast, easy way out with fast travel could make that whole experience a little bit more important. Like, you'll have to be very, very careful when calculating battles. I also noticed in my no fast travel run that I explored more and appreciated the world more. In the dungeons part of the video, I mentioned having fewer shrines, and that could contribute to players seeing more of the beautiful world that the game has to offer because they'd have to travel a little bit more than they used to in the original Breath of the Wild. It'll make you appreciate the surroundings of the world just a little bit more. I said I'd come back to boss fights in this video, and for the most part, I like the boss fights in Breath of the Wild, except for the final stage of Ganon, which was just pointing and shooting at targets with an OP bow. However, a lot of the bosses, especially the Ganon forms, feel and look very similar, and I feel like that was a missed opportunity. I would have liked each one of them to feel more unique, and while most of them had a strength and a weakness to them, that didn't resolve that feeling for me. The same counts for the final Ganon boss fight. The last stage is straight up boring and there's zero challenge, and during the first stage, if you've beaten all of the divine beasts, the health bar just gets lowered to half of it, which would be fine if there was some way to make the player do that instead of a simple cutscene. So what I would like from Breath of the Wild 2 is better, more engaging, and unique boss fights throughout the game. Now, I quite like the weapon durability system in Breath of the Wild. A lot of people seem to dislike it, and to an extent, I can get that. We get attached to items and we don't want to lose them. However, this weapon breaking system offers a lot of variation in the weapons that you'll use throughout the game. It also makes you think strategically in battles, and I love that. Nevertheless, beyond that, there's no real point in weapons breaking. It would be nice to gain items from broken weapons that can then be used to upgrade armor, upgrade different weapons, and so forth and so forth. That could be something that's worth looking into for Breath of the Wild 2. I'm just saying, Nintendo, I'm just saying. Right. I cannot be the only one who loved the Tarrytown questline. It was such an inventive, original, and fresh questline in Breath of the Wild, and I'd love to be able to do something like that on a bigger scale in Breath of the Wild 2. Slowly but surely building out Tarrytown was so cool to do and so cool to see, and it offered benefits to the player as well. Breath of the Wild took place in a world terrorized by Ganon. A lot of it was in ruin, and because of it, the world sometimes felt a little bit empty for me. Breath of the Wild 2 could easily build on this. What if in Breath of the Wild 2, throughout the game, you can help build up Hyrule again, restore ruins, build villages, repair the castle, and because of that, gain access to weapons, items, armor, you name it. I would love that so much, and you could also let it impact the story of the game. I want a fuller world with more life and NPCs to interact with. I would adore that for Breath of the Wild 2. Now, it is no secret that I love the story of Breath of the Wild, and I love the freedom you get on exploring that story, and I want Breath of the Wild 2 to continue that because that's one of the reasons the original is one of my all-time favorite games. What I would love for Breath of the Wild 2 to do is provide us with a much darker story, and maybe even side quests that have good story arcs to them. The teaser trailer for Breath of the Wild 2 showed us a darker tone, and I'd love for that tone to be present throughout the sequel. So yeah, Nintendo, you know what to do. Get to work, and show us something on Breath of the Wild 2 soon, please. Thank you. That would be great. Obviously, Breath of the Wild is a great game and I love playing it. I've done 5 playthroughs of it and I'll probably do 5 more because I love it, but it is imperfect. The sequel has the opportunity to build on the foundations of Breath of the Wild, and I would love for it to do that because the foundation that we have here is a great foundation for the future of Zelda games. And I, for one, am super excited to play those future Zelda games in due time. What do you think of the ideas and thoughts in this video? Let me know in the comments below. What would you change about Breath of the Wild, and what do you want to see in the sequel? Anyways, thanks for watching, subscribing, and clicking that bell. Feel free to watch another video, and I'll see you later. Hoot hoot, mother forkers.